Well, good evening, everyone. Looks like just Jacob Harrington. Good evening, Jacob Harrington. Hopefully you're doing good. No, we got a few people coming in. Who's up? Who is here? Did you miss us? Did you miss me? I'm just flying solo tonight. More on that in just a little bit. Comment, let me know who's here, who's hanging out with me. I'm gonna ask you guys this question. How are you doing? Really? Honestly? How have things been? Currently I have a son who just came in here. Levi's hanging out. He was supposed to be asleep. He was already asleep, so I might have to go put him in his room. What's up, Jason? What's up, Tiffany? What's up, Chad Langford? Let me move this over here. Finished Space Force yesterday. What's up, Peter? That's awesome. I'm on episode 2. We're gonna end our time talking about Space Force. Hey, Amber. Oh man, give me just a moment. Let me fade that music down. I've been, hey Greg. What's up, PGK? What's up, Greg? Yeah, can you cover, Greg? I'm gonna go put Levi back in bed, guys. I'll be right back. So, for the very first time, this is now Lawaya with Jacob Harrington. Jacob, lead them in some holy discussions. I'm gonna go put Levi back in bed. Give me like 10 seconds. You get 10 seconds, Jacob. So what did Jacob do? What did he say? Did he not do anything? He didn't take advantage of the situation, Jacob? Sorry, guys. Levi came in here grinning. He was like, I want to be on this show. And then he grabbed his iPad. I don't see any comments unless there's a bit of an internet delay. I figured Jacob would have totally just taken this thing and led it to a direction I never intended it to go. My goodness. Let me fade this music. Well, good evening, everyone. Again, welcome to... It's been 2 weeks. I'm a little rusty. Welcome to Lawaya, where the internet hangs, where dreams come true. Again, I'm flying solo tonight. The kids kind of went to bed late, and Kristen honestly was like, "I'll comment, but I'm so exhausted. I'm not really at a place to talk about such heavy things right now, and I totally want to honor and respect that." So I think she'll probably be joining me in the chat here later. Oh, good. Thank you, Jacob, for resisting yourself. So here's the question I want to pose to everyone. I have a few thoughts that I've been I wrote down like basically 20 minutes before. But I want to talk about heavier stuff tonight. I want to talk about, the events of the last couple weeks or the last week. I want to talk about race. I want to talk about equality. I want to talk about some heavy stuff. And I don't know if I'll keep this up forever, but I'm hoping that just kind of those of us that are hanging, that are joining in, could have some good, compassionate, honest, raw discussions about what's been going on. Right before this, I was watching a live video of the protests in San Luis Obispo, which so far look like things are going very well, all things considered, compared to what's been going on in the nation as a whole. This looks to be the protest seems to be pretty peaceful, and so but let me kind of set the tone off the bat. I've noticed that the comments have completely stopped now that I've kind of made everything heavy and serious. I would love tonight, however long we go, to be an opportunity for us to listen, for us to grow. Honestly, just for me to be able to maybe kick some thoughts to you and that you could help me process where I've been the last week on social media, watching videos, all kinds of stuff. And I'd love it again for you guys to participate as much as possible. But I originally the plan to not, well, actually the plan last Monday was to have a whole night. We're going to call it the Depresh Sesh, and we'll definitely still do that. But I was going to, spend the whole time talking with Kristen about my testimony, just walking through anxiety and depression, how I actively try and work on my mental health, what I've learned about mental health, and then have her kind of talk about her side of being married to someone who battles with mental illness, and kind of her side of the story when things were going really bad for me and we didn't know what was going on and she didn't know how to respond. And so again, that conversation will happen maybe next Monday, maybe next Monday we'll want to do something that's serious, but I just continually thought that I couldn't come on here and say hey, let's rate pizza toppings. And I also didn't want to have a whole episode kind of dedicated to my story. With everything going on, I wanted to sit with this kind of community that we've made online and talk about what's been going on, and hopefully have some good, robust dialogue about the protests and about race and about, everything that has been going on in our nation, and what we can do moving forward. And so I guess I'm not seeing any comments, so I guess I'll kind of just dive in, and kind of the question here is this: what in the world is going on? And what I'll do is I'll just talk, because I don't have my amazing co-host here to kind of kick ideas back and forth. There you go, Tiffany. Hey, Tiffany, thank you. Gosh, it's hard. What a year it's been. Feel like we've had a hard time processing it all. Yeah, my goodness, what has happened to 2020? It's like 2020 needs a courtesy flush or a hard reset. It's insane what's been going on this whole year. A lot of processing, yeah. So Kristen and I, the whole family, we spent the last week up in Oakhurst area, getting away for a little bit, which was really fun. We got to spend time with my in-laws, with Kristen's mom and dad, Tom and Debbie, and forgive me, I don't remember. I believe it was Monday night. It might have been Sunday evening when all the stuff went down. But, in the middle of kind of our vacation time away, obviously, just like you, started to read about this situation with George Floyd and trying to figure out what in the world was going on. And for me, it was 10 or 11 at night, and I was just reading posts and reading, hey, Lori, thanks for hanging out with me. Again, Kristen will be here soon. Hey, Christina. Yeah, right? If only the Bible had some type of warning general direction for society. So with that, it was really late at night, and I found on YouTube the full video. It was it's 9 minutes 50 something seconds, but the full 10-minute video of George Floyd's murder. And it was one of, you're taking attendance, right? Yes, Pastor Kirkley, you are being marked. It was one of probably the most heaviest, most traumatizing things I've ever seen. It it felt like, something out of like an ISIS video, it just was one of the saddest, most depressing, most shocking, it made me nauseous. And I was sitting in bed, everyone was asleep, but I started talking to the video, and started getting so frustrated that, the officers weren't listening to those who were begging for them to check George's pulse, and I was really shooken up. And obviously, I don't live in Minneapolis. I've never seen anything like that personally myself. We'll talk a lot about that, but I think what has happened in the last week, not only I think as a result of all of us being in quarantine for months, where we're already like as a nation, we've already been kicked down. We're already kind of at our lowest point, with everything going on with COVID. But of course, my goodness, to see that video, and to watch what happened to George Floyd after just talking as a nation about what happened to Ahmaud Arbery and then Breonna Taylor. I think it sparked something, a really good righteous anger towards our black brother, towards the evils against our black brothers and sisters, and watching this injustice and seeing, Ahmaud Arbery just jogging, and two individuals who would have completely walked, who would have been exonerated had not been for that video to go viral. And I think it sparked a topic that has really been embedded into our history. This subject of racial inequality, this subject of what happens day after day after day after day of people of color. And so maybe you're like me, I've been talking a lot about it. I've been talking a lot about it with Kristen. I've been talking a lot about it with my kiddos. I mean, the whole week, even though we had so much fun together as a family with Kristen's mom and dad, Tom and Debbie, we had some really, really good conversations, and they because they're older than us, they bring a perspective that Kristen and I don't have. And they've seen things like this happen before, and they also have they have a really good perspective on kind of how our nation has responded to this in the past, and almost kind of like the legislative political side of this, that something that I really don't know much about and really wanted to grow in. But I've been sickened, I've been frustrated, I've been angry at myself, because I mean, what a to use a word that I want to talk about tonight, what a privileged place to be, that this is the first that I've like talked about something like this publicly, to talk about racial injustice. Like, when for so many people it's the air that they breathe, it's the world that they live in day after day. And for me to be like, now, like, I've been in this for a week. I mean, what an ignorant, privileged place to be. But I have been frustrated, and I have been grieving, and I have been praying for our nation in a way that I haven't really before. Of course, I always want to pray for the nation, pray for the United States, but that almost kind of felt like a weird thing to be like, well, I will pray for the nation, but man, it's been on my heart this whole week. Let me read some of your comments. Hey, my babe's here. What's up, girl? Are you with Levi? I hope this makes sense. I'm thankful that the whole video is uninterrupted because the media uses pieces of videos. Yes. Yeah. And it's so much more visceral just watching it, not just, some 15-second Instagram story. To watch him just with hands in his pockets, leaning on his neck for that long. I mean, it's like after the first 10 seconds, you're like, okay, clearly something's going to change, and they're going to move him. But it's minute after minute after minute. It's horrific. And so, gosh, obviously protests have been going on, and rightfully so. I know that, the last seemingly 24, 48 hours, there's been a lot of seemingly people taking advantage of this very real situation, to change the conversation, to make it something it's not. And to me, it makes me sad that I just saw before this, the protesters are the protesters, the looters are the looters, like stay focused or something like that. That just, there's such a good unrest we're in right now, because I'm hoping that it will start some conversations, and it will force us to deal with ugliness, and it will force us to examine ourselves, and to pray for each other, and to have a empathy and a compassion for people completely different than us, and for us to be enraged regarding situations that do not directly affect us, I think is so important. And I don't think this is so not a political conversation to talk about racial equality. It is not a political conversation. It is not a Republican, Democratic conversation. Like, to me, this is a gospel conversation. To me, this is a Jesus conversation where as a pastor, as a believer, that we are all made in the image and likeness of God, and to fight for those where that image is being dimmed and that image is being belittled and that image is being murdered. That has to be something, regardless of legislation, like to me, like that voice should start in the pulpit. That voice should start in the church. And gosh, I've just been so grieved. And so I know I'm talking and I'm watching my girl comment from Kristen, not my girl beating Jacob. And so, let me just talk about that a little bit, if it's okay. I'm watching your comments at all time, but I'll just kind of keep going, and then I'll at any moment I'll stop and just respond to what you guys are saying. Like you said, Lori, just listening to the pain in the people's heart, wanting the officers to stop. Yeah, I mean, they were begging. They weren't. I don't know. They weren't causing problems. They were pleading, and just to hear them be like, "This is what happens when you do drugs," like mocking George Floyd, who had gotten in trouble for writing a bad check. My God, it's just so sad. Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you said, Lori, too. I'm forgetting his name. I'm sorry, but George Floyd's brother said something that's kind of going viral right now. That's very good, very good. So if I can just tell a little bit more about my story, I grew up in Chula Vista. And where the middle school and high school I went to was kind of functionally segregated. There were a lot of students that were kind of that, I forget the official verbiage, but is it ESL, English as a second language? And they kind of like that dual immersion. And there's a lot of students that grew up in Mexico. They were citizens of Mexico. They probably had dual citizenship. I'm sorry, they probably had dual citizenship, but they lived in Tijuana, and they would drive to my school in the United States in Chula Vista. And in my middle school and high school, there was, again, it was functionally segregated. It was the kids that lived in Tijuana sat with the kids that lived in Tijuana, and the kids that didn't sat with the kids that didn't. And there was just the brokenness and sinfulness of my own heart. I remember growing up feeling just this frustration, I guess, with those students, and feeling like we did come from completely different worlds. And I guess in some ways in which we did, but I grew up not as a matter of my upbringing, but just it was the world in which I went to school, was that our world was kind of functionally segregated, and there was racism towards the Hispanics, towards the Mexicans, towards those that lived in Tijuana. And there was, of course, I remember, being called names and stuff, and there was some back, of course, where I was kind of the token white kid, and I grew up with that. And it wasn't till later that I realized how even, I graduated in 2008, so I know that for many of you, that's like, whoa, you're a baby. Watching the reality of racism even then, growing up in middle school and high school, I remember one of my friends who was black, who was African American, and like watching some of my friends tease him and like call him the N-word as like some joke, like, haha, like you and I are close enough that I can call you that. And I can still picture his face, like it was the most painful smile, because he was like, I have to smile because I want you to like me, and I want to be a part of this peer group, but I can still see the pain in his eyes, and like watching that passively and not standing up, probably because I wanted to still be in that group, and I didn't want to cause problems or make waves. And gosh, and just to like super fast forward, to move here, to move to the Central Coast in 2011, and to see like there is in our county of San Luis Obispo, there is a systemic spirit of racism and oppression. I have seen it since August 28th, 2011, the moment I moved here. I remember one of the first people that I met at my church made a joke and said, "Welcome to Atascadero. It's 99% white, but we're shooting for 100%." And just the absolute racism and bigotry and it goes back to the founding of this city. If you study just the founding of Atascadero by E.G. Lewis, who was a very rich white magazine publisher, and he founded Atascadero. He wanted it to be a utopian society where, quote, the whitest and the brightest would live here. And in Atascadero, initially, they restricted the purchase of land in Atascadero to only white males. They would restrict any, restrict African Americans, restrict black people from purchasing land here. And that was the foundation of which Atascadero was built. And people might want to argue otherwise, but no. That's how this was built. Again, you can go read it in the Historical Society here in Atascadero. The whitest and the brightest is what they wanted. And I feel like that spirit lives on in some ways, in many ways, in this county. The spirit of white elitism, the spirit of saying we only want the whitest and the brightest, the spirit of belittling the voice of minorities, or even like having such a absolute inability to empathize. I'm reading some comments. Yeah. Yeah, Tiffany. Yeah, that dream has failed on both accounts. That's funny. And I've seen it firsthand in my church. And I think for many people, like, the bar for quote unquote racism is so low, and they say like, well, I'm not a racist because, I haven't said that word, or I'm not a racist because I have people in my life that are minorities or people of color, and I just really think that what has happened the last week has made us all stop and realize that, I think this nation for the longest time has believed the lie that, because of Brown versus the Board of Education, that racism was solved in the 50s. And even though it doesn't look like it did in the 50s, does not mean equality is what we're living in. We have such a long way to go. And as a pastor in San Luis Obispo County, serving at a church in Atascadero where the roots of that city were founded on the idea that, again, the whitest and the brightest, I think that's still the air we breathe, and that is the fight we must continue to push against. So gosh, let me see any comments. Big hugs, PGK. I love you, Lori. Miss you. Love you, Jacob. Love you, Tiffany. Love you, Marlene. Hey, Tina. Kristen has her hands full. Yes, she does. She's next door. Or not next door. We have two houses. No, she's like basically right in here. I can kind of hear her phone, and the kids we're exhausted. We've been gone. So what? Just to continue, what I've tried to dialogue online with, and what I've tried to, yeah, that's a good question. I should write that down. I want to come back to that, Callie. Yeah, that's my final question. Like, what do we do? How do we help? I've been trying so again, to kind of circle back to a word I used earlier, this idea of privilege, and I've seen a lot of conversations online pushing against this idea of privilege, that it doesn't exist, and this is a ridiculous thing to even discuss. And so, if you've come to hear a white dude talk to you about privilege, you're in luck, my friend, because I've been trying to learn and to grow and to understand. And what I've actually really been trying to process, and again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is try to explain privilege to someone like myself, someone who has been a benefit of privilege and doesn't have really a lens to see it. And when the idea of white privilege, the idea of privilege in general comes up, we immediately push back. We immediately get defensive, because I think what you hear is, this whole world's been handed to you. You haven't had any struggles. You haven't had any hardships, and that's not what's going on. So let me kind of go to my notes for just a moment. I'm going to grab my phone. This is what I've been trying to write out about. Again, trying to hopefully rephrase this idea of privilege, of white privilege, in a way that I hope every single person can sit and examine their life and just have a greater sense of compassion and a greater sense of empathy. Before that, though, let me look at your comments. Appreciate your voice. Love you, Monica. Hey, Alicia. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote an excellent op-ed for the LA Times about protests and current climate. I absolutely will read that. Kristen, can you make note of that? I really want to read that, Alicia. Thank you for being here, Alicia. Yeah, that'd be really cool. So to talk about privilege here, let's have some fun. Let's get in trouble together. I think when we talk about privilege, I think we're talking about benefits in our lives that are outside of our control. Again, when we talk about, hey, this is a privilege, you have a privilege, this is a white privilege, we are talking about benefits that are outside, benefits that we experience in our lives that are outside of our control. And so for me, for some of the privileges that I've experienced in life is that I'm healthy and I'm able-bodied. That is such a benefit. That is such a blessing. That is such a privilege. I'm healthy. This morning, I started my day at like 6 a.m. Or no, that's not true. Like 7 or 8. I slept in, okay? Just jumping on a trampoline that Tom and Debbie, Kristen's mom and dad, bought for the kiddos. And I just sat and just jumped on the trampoline. You know, that, like, what a blessing. I'm able-bodied. That's definitely a privilege. I grew up with both parents. And both my parents are married to this day, and both my parents love each other. That is an absolute privilege. That is an absolute benefit. That is such an honor, and that's completely outside of my control. And for many of you, that is not your reality. But that's an absolute privilege. I would say being born and raised in a Christian home, being raised going to church every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, every Wednesday night, that was outside of my control because my dad was getting me in the car to church whether or not I wanted to or not. And that was that was a benefit. That was a blessing. That was a privilege in my life that was outside of my control. I grew up with no abuse in my upbringing. There was no abuse. I grew up in a great home where my mom and dad loved each other and loved us and taught us well. And I know for so many of you, that was not your reality. And I've cried with you and I've wept with you. And that, I would say, is, for me, that is such a privilege to grow up in a home where my mom and dad protected me and wanted the best for me. And of course, with that, being a privilege of being a man and of being born Caucasian, being born white. That is a benefit that is outside of my control. To kind of flip it for a second, again, that doesn't mean that I have not had struggles. That does not mean that I have not had opposition in my life. And that also does not mean that there are issues that I have that you, like, there are privileges that you might have that I don't have. And just to rattle off a couple, just for the sake of conversation, you know. I've talked before that I suffer from anxiety and depression, and that is something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, you know. And I know some of you suffer from anxiety, depression, and some of you don't. And you've had bad days, you've had sad days, of course, but you don't suffer from depression. You don't suffer from anxiety. This is kind of a joke, but a struggle I've had in life, I am not athletic. I am the most uncoordinated human being I have ever met in my life. My goodness. Another one, again, just for the sake of conversation, my work is very personal and very public. As a Christian, the Bible says, if you're going to be a pastor, God literally says, I will judge you harder. Your punishment will be more severe. And again, for the sake of conversation, I would say, man, what a privileged place it is that many of you just get to attend church, that you just get to be a member of a church. I lead a church. I'm a pastor of a church. That is a huge struggle and obstacle. Again, I'm not conflating that or trying to mirror that to what's happened the last week, but again, I'm just starting this conversation. But of all of my struggles, of all of the oppositions that I've had to deal with in my life, my gender and my skin color has not been one of them. I have never felt unsafe walking by myself in my own neighborhood. I have never. I worry about my kids so much, but I've never worried about how their race might be a factor in their success and in their safety. When learning about this United States, about my civilization growing up, it was always people that looked just like me. It was always white males that were in the history books leading the conversation. And again, lastly, if a cop pulls me over, or if I'm audited by the IRS, I know that it wasn't because of my race. I wasn't singled out because I'm a white guy. No, it's like, oh no, I probably, and I think, again, to talk about this whole idea of privilege, it is not, if any of those resonated with you, like, yeah, I did grow up in a Christian home. Yeah, I am, I am white. I am male. I know that the conversation is not, you're white and you should feel guilty about it. That is not the conversation. That is not what's going on. It's not that because you have these moments where you've been able to take a few steps forward because of circumstances completely outside of your control. It's not that you should feel guilty. It's not that you should feel bad. I think all of these protests and all that what I think the Black Lives Matter movement initially set out to do is just to say, hey, can you at least just stop for a moment and think about what it would look like, what it would feel like, what it would be like to live and to walk in our shoes? Can you just stop to acknowledge that it's not perfectly equal? Can you just stop to just think and to just empathize for a moment, to realize that all of us, because of circumstances outside of our control, the scales are weighed either for us or against us. So let's love one another. Let's show compassion for one another. Let's actively help one another. It's not you should feel guilty for being white. No, but you should absolutely feel guilty if you refuse to empathize with people of color. And you should absolutely feel guilty if you continually refused to sit and to stop and to think about how your life was different from somebody else's. Absolutely. And I think that's a lot of things that I'm wrestling with right now and I'm thinking about right now. Again, as a American, as a Christian, as a pastor, I think these are very, very important conversations that we need to be having right now. Because again, we're all image bearers and things are not equal right now. Things are not okay right now. And I know that things have gotten very violent and things have gotten very scary. But I think it's really important right now, as it seems like, some ambulance and cop cars right outside our door. I think, again, it's so important for us right now to just stop and think, why is this all going on? I know that the how is pretty bad, and I'm not saying like, oh, they should be able to just, I think it's really important for us to think about, why is this going on? Why are they so upset? And that we might learn from that, and not be so focused on the nitty-gritty of the how right now. I know it's bad, and I'm not saying I condone all this going on. Again, I think, the protesters are protesting and we should listen. And so let me read some comments. Let Makes sense. This is good. Yeah, really good comments. Let me see what else I had. I don't really remember. Yeah, Tiffany, and I think that's a really good thing. We need to listen. I hope this, again, it's probably like a selfish thing to say, but like, I know like our nation right now is like, it's literally on fire. It's so bad. And I think what we can do, which that'll lead me to my last one, and then we'll talk about Space Force. I think what we can do is listen. I think what we can do is actively research and search for a perspective that is not your own. Ask, trusted friends, either in your church or in your community, and we can have really good conversations. And I think, to go back to, I forget if it was either Callie or Tiffany, like, how do we raise our kids in all this? This is probably very naive, but I think to a certain extent, like, I feel like there's a battle being won right now that hopefully, like, my kids will have a different battle. Like, my goodness, hopefully, like, we will have moved on and progressed from how things are right now in 2020, that they'll have new battles, that hopefully they can look at us and say, thank you for fighting those battles. I'm not naive to say that, I don't know, in 15 years, all the world's problems are going to be solved and racial inequality will be a thing of the past. But let's see. It seems a lot of set the bar for ourselves. Yeah. Okay. So, seems like a lot of the problem is that we set the bar for ourselves so low, and the bar for others so high without knowing their experience. My goodness, Jacob. Yes. Lives and circumstances, as always, the answer is love. We have to be actively engaged in it. Oh, hold on. Let me turn that back on. We have to be actively engaged in it. Sometimes love comes naturally, and sometimes it takes effort. Yeah. Dang, Jacob. Look at you, man. Yeah. I hope it is different. Which, this isn't really what we're talking about, but I always see like stuff online that is like, this generation has it so easy, Isn't that the goal? Isn't that the point? That we would make it easier for the next generation? Yeah, plan now for a part. Like, isn't that the goal? Oh, this next generation, they have it so easy. Isn't that the stinking goal? That we would work hard, that we would die on hills so that they could progress forward and not have to fight the same stinking battles that we were so stupid and too stubborn to really get in the nitty-gritty and fight through. Like, I hope the next generation has it easier than us, because my God, things are really bad right now. I hope things are better. I hope the next generation doesn't have to deal with, black people getting murdered in the streets. And then people trying to justify. I don't know. As you can tell, guys, I'm frustrated. I'm so frustrated. I have one more thing I wanna hopefully address, and then I just want to just hear from you, and then we'll talk about Space Force. Okay. I've been trying to learn and trying to figure out why white people get so defensive, because I've seen it and I've felt it in my own heart. Because I think it's been very interesting that what I've seen online as kind of minority voices and people of color are trying to talk through all of this and trying to share their perspective. There's this inevitable yeah, but that happens. And it's never from a black person. It's always from a white person. I know that's kind of a stereotype, but my goodness, I've yet to be proven otherwise this last week. And it seems like there's this immediate pushback from people like me, from white people. Again, I'm just speaking from my own perspective. And I think, so I'd love to be either corrected or feel free to comment. This is just an idea I've tried to be kicking around. I think that what happens, so fellow white people, listen, I think what happens when people post things about racial inequality, I think there's a gut reaction of defensiveness from white people because they feel as though they are being identified as the oppressor. And they want to go, whoa, 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 I didn't do this to you. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, I'm not a racist. I'm not the oppressor here. And so their immediate response, instead of chewing on it, instead of soaking in it, their immediate response is to push back and to say, yeah, but, and to provide another perspective. And to immediately almost play the other side because they've taken it personally. That they're saying, hey, you are the oppressor in my suffering. And that is not what's going on. I think what's going on is that, again, people of color and just kind of they're saying, can you listen to me? Can you sit and can I share with you my struggles? Can I share with you what it's been like to be a black woman in the United States? Can I share with you what's going on? Because I want my voice to be heard, and it doesn't feel like it's being heard. Can you please listen? Can you please love? Can you please empathize? And the problem is this, and this is what I've been angry with as well. The sad reality is that when the majority, when, again, just taking it back to me, when a white man like me gets defensive and immediately feels a responsibility to push back because they don't want to be identified as the oppressor, whether their motives were this or not, they become the oppressor. Because as they say, yeah, but, and as they try and go, yeah, but have you read? And, oh, no, but, in doing so, you are belittling their voices. You are trying to dismiss their feelings. And again, I think what comes down to it is that you don't want to be identified as the oppressor. But as you try and say, but yeah, but, you're doing the exact thing that you are angry about being accused of. So again, please, like Callie said, let's listen, let's pause, let's educate. Yeah, you know what? Ashley the librarian, please, I give you full commenting power to just give us book recommendations. So, Immortal Life of Henrietta Lack. I've never heard of that book. The book I just bought, have not read. And I think everyone that looks like me is going to push back at this, but the book is called White Fragility: Why White People Don't Want to Talk About Race. And it sounds like a pretty important book. I have not started it yet. It's out of stock on Amazon, which kind of tells you something, but if everyone wants to read that book, so I'm going to read through it. But again, these are my raw thoughts that I've been processing this week, along with my amazing girl, Kristen. Any other thoughts? Maybe a calling to you guys. I've heard that book is good too. Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. Yeah. Christine is saying excellent read. Yeah, what are your thoughts, guys? I know this isn't the normal Lawaya, but we kind of wanted to, before all this went down, we kind of wanted to we kind of wanted to have some more serious stuff. Yeah, so how do you think we, as a community of currently 28 people watching online, how can we be better? How can we help? What do you think? Lori, to answer your question, I think because black men and black women have continually been subjects of discrimination, even like in a matter of weeks, not talk about 400 years. I think race has to be a part of the conversation because it just happens too much. I understand your heart though. I know your heart's not in a bad place. I know you're saying, like, let's judge them on the content of their character. Between the World and Me, Alicia says. Ashley says the book's about a black woman with cervical cancer. Wow. Jeez. Yeah, that's a good point, Callie. Sorry, Jacob, good point too. Listen, learn, love. Don't be afraid to stumble over words. Yeah, that's another thing too, as we try and figure it out. This is Jordan Peterson who talks about that, which this isn't really, he's not really a part of the conversation right now, but he talks about that the importance of free speech is just that we say wrong words so that we can learn how to say the right words. That sometimes that we stumble, and that's very important, because as we talk and as we dialogue, we find the right words. So that's good, Callie. I'm trying to do my best too. Any other thoughts, guys? Man. And let me shut up. And listen. J. Pete. Amen. I don't know what that means. Oh man. Yeah, me too. I want to be. Yeah, I want to learn. I want to be corrected, I particularly want to be corrected by people whose upbringing and perspective is completely different than mine. Right now, I'm not really, you know, interested in being corrected by white dudes, but that's probably not okay either. I just want to learn from a different perspective. It's okay to stumble. I do it all the time. I do it emotionally, relationally, physically. I stumble. I have been known to stub my toe in the middle of the night and scream out in pain, and then my wife just laughs. No compassion, but that's okay. I mean, I'm very accident prone. Um, yeah, my heart hurts too. My heart hurts too. Only Jacob, guys. Only Jacob. Yeah, let's all learn together. Yeah, I'd love some books, some resources to read, to learn, to grow. Um, right on. Okay, let's spend 5 minutes on this. Thoughts on Space Force? Has anyone watched Space Force? If you don't know what this is, it's the new Netflix show based on a fictional thought. I think we need to have a series. Yeah, Chris and I have been talking about that for a long time. I think, Kristen, after you came back from the women's retreat, because I know you and a group of ladies from the women's retreat last year, you came back with that. Lori, your wish. Hey, Pastor Wendell. It's Jamie's birthday. Wendell and I have been talking a lot this last week, but you go enjoy. You go enjoy your bride, Pastor Wendell. My goodness. Yeah, so Space Force. I think it's really fun. I like it. It's very different from The Office, and I think everyone, of course, is expecting The Office because it's Greg Daniels and Steve Carell who wrote it together. But I think it's fun. I think John Malkovich does an amazing job. I love Ben Schwartz. To me, it's almost like 70% like drama, and like you're just invested in the characters and invested in the journey that they're in. But the comedy is very different. It's not documentary style. It's not very slapstick. It's not like, at first I was like, oh, this is kind of like Get Smart. It's not. To me, it like they're establishing characters, and the characters are just fun, and I like it, and I think it kind of pokes fun at us as a nation in a really, really warm spirited way, and I think we kind of need that right now as well. Just the idea of a space force is just it's just very interesting. I like it though, but it's nothing like The Office. It's nothing like Parks and Rec. Let's see. I liked it. Matt didn't. Let's see. Space Force, if you want to watch. John Malkovich, Carrie Steve Carell for 7. There's a lot of truth to that, Jacob. Yeah, he does a phenomenal job. John Ralphio. Yeah. John Malkovich is just like every scene. He just eats it up. It's so good. Well, that's interesting. I didn't care for The Office, but I like Space. Yeah, I really like Space Force. So, I started. I started Arrested Development 2 days before Space Force, so I think it ruined the humor of Space Force. Like season 1 of Arrested Development, like the first 3 seasons of Arrested Development is gold, and then there's the Netflix season that was okay, and then it was like the next one. I think there's like 3 Netflix. The ones that Netflix did is continually just wow. Hey, greetings from Shamrock, Texas. Wow. Gosh, I'm praying for you, Melissa. Praying for you. Gosh, I mean, traveling across state right now with everything that's going on. Hope you guys are safe and good. Yeah, I agree. Next Monday. Hear that? See that? See that, Kristen? It's just not the same. I'm boring. And it also was a really heavy subject. I didn't let... So yeah, boots on the moon. We'll have boots on the moon by 2024. Okay, I'm going to call it, guys. We'll see how having this on my feed long term will be. Kind of comments I'll get, but that's good. Again, I think it's important for us to have these tough conversations. Don't compare John and Steve. 2 completely different actors. Jump comparison, Jacob. Oh man. Oh man. Gosh. Pray for our nation. I'm gonna go back to something Chad Comp posted. Boom. Let us rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. I feel this is so much right now. Let's pray together for our country, for our brothers, for our sisters. I'm going to leave that up. Oh, I thought I could leave it up. There it goes. Nope. Wait. Okay. It's for some reason stuck in that position, but that's okay. I have somehow messed up. We learn, right? I'm going to leave it right there. Play some music for you guys. I love you dearly. Miss you dearly. Barber quarantine was kind of fun. It's kind of nutty. Nobody obeyed social distancing. So we're talking about that tomorrow as the staff. Y'all just gotta stay apart. Don't get me in trouble. Oh gosh. Guys, thank you for coming to this very special, different episode of Lawaya. You guys are the best. Next week, I'm going to make sure Kristen's here because it just wasn't the same. I love you. Be good, be safe. Bye, Lawaya.